So good evening, everyone. I just have a few slides that I will share, which kind of gives a high-level overview of what's been taking place at Talbot County Public Schools. We are transforming and performing each day, which is our motto. We have three priorities that we focus on, which is kind of our North Star. The first is all about the academics. And even though it has math there, it's not like we put reading on the bookshelf. We just focus on math, knowing that nationally math lags behind reading. So we've been having a laser light on our math for this year. Our second priority is about engaging our environment for students and staff, making sure both parties have a sense of belonging. And then our third is hiring and retaining highly qualified and diverse staff. And so this is the season right now where we have staff members going out to job fairs and trying to recruit for vacancies that we have. So the three priorities that I just spoke about, they were created with the board. We had a board retreat just about this time last year. And we sat around and we said at the end of this year, what do we want to look back and say that we've moved the needle on? And so out of that rich discussion were the three priorities that you just saw. So after we talked about that, what happened was that I went back to my cabinet to talk about those three priorities, and then we all set goals around those priorities, and we meet on those goals so that each department has ownership of the goals, and then I go back to the board and we report data. We had our opening day, so again, we had those priorities front and center for the whole organization in August, and then from September, when the students and staff came in, all the way up to now, I continuously go around and talk about those three priorities. We have data points that are tied to those priorities. And we had our first data dig, which we called it, which was looking at our baseline numbers back in November. And then we shared it at our board meeting in December. And then we just last week had another data set where we compared our fall baseline to some mid-year checkpoints. So, and you can, always go onto our website to log into our board meetings where we share a lot of that data and our presentations of the data that's tied to our priorities. So what's new this year? Last year was a lot of listening and learning. And so from that first year, some things were put in place. MAP is a type of assessment that we give our students in kindergarten through 6. It stands for Measures of Academic Progress. And so students are tested in the fall, they're tested again in the winter, and then they're tested again in the spring so that we can have quick time results so we could see what we could do in the interim. The state test is just a one time a year, and we don't get the results back until the fall of the next year. So this assessment gives us more data at a quicker pace so we could see what we need to do and then change the course for any interventions that we need to do. We have elementary math coaches. Since math is one of our priorities, we have staff members who are assisting teachers with math practices and going in the classroom and implementing those best practices for our students. We have math supervisor who's going around and looking at standards and making sure that teachers are teaching to the standards. And as I'm out around in the buildings, I've received a lot of positive comments from both about our math coaches and our math supervisor who's helping teachers implement those best math practices in the classroom. I started a student advisory, and we started in January. And so I have students grades 6 through 12 from the different buildings, and we meet and we talk about things that are going well in the district, and they give me suggestions on things we can work on. So we just met actually last week before the break, and I think we've narrowed down the two things we want to focus on for the rest of this year and then moving into next year. And this month for April, I'm going to meet one-on-one. We've been meeting as a group, and last week we divided middle and high school, but April is going to be the month where I meet with each one individually so I could find out individually what they're doing, how they're doing in school, and any leadership opportunities that they can come up with or we can think about for them. We do a school climate survey we started this year, a pre and a post. Again, the state has a school climate survey, but it's given one time a year. We get the results back, after the fact. So this is a way for us to take the temperature during the school year and compare beginning to the end all around our school climate. Data digs, you heard about that. That's really coming together and looking at all of our data points that are attached to our priorities. Number 7, we have Transforming and Performing Awards, and this is an award that's given, staff can nominate other staff. And this is an award that you give to a staff who's really doing something over and above, taking risks, thinking outside of the box. And we've given one already to Mr. Ray Remish down at Tillman Elementary School. He teaches students in elementary different instruments. He has a news broadcast system in the morning. Every time I go there, I see him doing something else. So he's a jack of all trades, and so well-deserving. He received our first Transforming and Performing Award. We've established 3 committees this school year: Finance Advisory, Policy, and Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee. It's made up of various district people, community people, parents, and so we sit around and talk about things that we could do under those umbrellas to continually move the district forward. 9, I talked about that with our goal setting around our priorities, making sure that we are also setting goals for ourselves, not only tied to our priorities, but as leaders, what are we going to do to continually get better as leaders? And we meet about what that looks like. Department roundtables is me just going into the different departments here at district office and talking about things that are going well within the department and things that we can continue to work on. And finally, number 11 is our Team Huddle newsletter. That's new this year. We've always done a newsletter that goes out to families, but this goes out to the entire organization staff-wise, so that everybody knows what's taking place in the different departments, any information that may be pertinent to them as a staff member. And so that is new this year. So we have a lot, as you could see, a lot going on this year, again, based on what I heard last year. So who am I doing all of these things with? 3 main groups. Our students, I'm out and about meeting with our students. The staff, I have Zoom meetings with new staff. I have Zoom meeting with seasoned staff. I go to roundtables with school staff and focus groups, and then surveys we put out. So I'm constantly soliciting feedback from everyone inside of the school district to make sure that we are tending to things that they feel we need to tend to, but also validating some of the things that we're doing well. And then finally, the community, doing speaking engagements such as this and letting community members know what we're doing, because it's not just us as a district that's isolated as a silo. We really want to partner with all community members that are out there so that we can make sure that we are putting out students who are college and career and life ready, and hopefully will add value to the community. And then finally, what is on the horizon for us? We are getting ready to celebrate our teachers and our support staff of the year. That's always a nice event where we get to highlight and pick our teacher of the year, support staff of the year. It's hiring season, so we are out there recruiting, trying to fill vacancies that we have. The budget, we got it approved from our board. It now went before county council, and we go back to the county council on April 9th for more in-depth discussion around our budget. Strategic plan, exciting time. We just put a RFP out for a partner to work with us in creating our next 4 years strategic plan-wise. So that will be underway starting in August of this year, and it'll wrap around for the whole 24-25 school year, so that we'll be ready 25-26 to start it, because our current one ends in 25. And our community partner breakfast, another great activity that we do, event that we highlight all of our community partners, because again, we can't do this alone. And so we have our schools and even our district office select a community partner to highlight and celebrate, just to let them know that they're appreciated for helping us for what they do with us. I always say it's a handshake and not a handout. And we want to make sure that it's not just a one-time thing and that we're continually working with our community partners for our students' sake. So I'm going to stop there. I know that was a lot. We are busy. I can't believe it's coming to the end of the year fast, but we still have a lot of work to do. It's the spring season, so we have spring sports, we have spring performances, we have testing still. Everyone's on a spring break right now, much needed spring break for our students and our staff. Well, I should say our 10-month and 11-month staff. Our 12-month staff, we're still here unless we take vacation. But it's a good time to reset and just kind of gather together so that we can finish strong toward the end of the school year. So, any questions? I know that was kind of a lot there in a short amount of time. And if you don't have any, I have a question. Oh, I see a hand there.
So you'll need to hit your unmute button. It's usually down in the left-hand bottom corner. So you take your mouse down there. There you go.
Oh, is it for me?
Yep.
Oh, for me. Okay. Some years ago, I remember public schools had a program called Character Counts. And is there anything like that still today? And what that related to that is what all is being done in terms of team building, being kind, not bullying, being good kids.
You know what? I've heard that character counts like frequently, so much that I just asked back here at district office, what happened to that? How was it funded? Why did it go away? So I was just asking those questions last week about character counts because it sounds good to me. So I'm still digging at that. So what we're doing right now is every school has their own thing. What I'd like to do is have some consistency with classroom communities. And what that really looks like is the first 5 to 10 minutes of the day, everyone across the system, talks with their students about how they're feeling. It may be a certain topic, like you said, on being kind, sharing, caring. Maybe there was a scenario that came up in school yesterday or the week before, and it's brought inside the circle for everyone to talk about. And what this time does, like I said, only 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe max. What it does, it allows students to talk about themselves in relationship to being part of that class community and their contribution, but also being able to be partners with the teacher, partners with each other as classmates in working toward common goals. So it's interesting you brought that up because that character counts. I'm out in the community and I've heard people bring that up. I'm not familiar with it, but I've heard about it. And
I'm the character counts queen, literally.
really? So I'm trying to find out why it
20
stopped.
years.
So I'm gonna dig into that because it sounded really like everything I've heard has been positive.
I think I miss it as much as the students do. And I run into them occasionally in town and they'll say, "You are a character counts coach." I'll give you the name of the gal who started it. She retired, and the one who took it over didn't end up staying. And I'll give you the name. She was wonderful to give you some guidance. I would be pleased if they started it again. And I'm not an early morning person, but every time I went in there at 8 in the morning and walked out, I was glad.
Mm. And so and once you said the person retired, I'm wondering if that's why it ended because the person who let it retired. But I'll find out.
Was it Janet Pfeiffer who started it?
No, it was,
Okay.
I'll think about it before this is over. Yeah, she was wonderful. She really drove the whole thing. And I don't know who was on, I know some people who were on her board whose names I can't recall now.
Okay.
Susan Luby. Susan Luby was the head of it.
Okay.
And I can get you her number.
Okay.
She was fabulous.
I had an experience the other day with a doctor, and he was telling me about treating kids with orthopedic problems. And he told me he could tell the difference between kids who come from private school would be nice and engaged and talk to him.
Mhm.
And then he didn't say the others. And I was really kind of shocked to hear this kind of dichotomy, this kind of one way and another way, and spelling it out to private school versus public school, I presume. So, and we all know there's a lot of stuff going on with kids. So
Mhm.
looking into something like that and what you're talking about first thing in the morning sounds wonderful.
Yes, yes. Thanks. I see a hand. Is that
Jackie,
Jackie?
yes, thank you. I have a question. I really loved hearing what you're doing and how you're stepping out ahead of the once a year surveys that the state is doing. But I'm wondering, with all the requirements of the blueprint plan, do you have a lot of flexibility in terms of doing things that are really important for our community?
That's a great
Our-
question. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great question. The blueprint does, because it's legislatively doled out, does have things we have to do. But what we're trying to do is be creative and still meet those requirements, but also having the autonomy to make it ours and to find out from the community and from the staff ways that we can do that. So, and one thing I didn't touch on, and you could probably go back and see some of our board meetings, the funding structures that have changed in the state as well, spending 75% of your funding to the school and being able to show that. So there's some huge shifts that we've had to make with Blueprint, with funding, but we don't want the creators of the Blueprint to think of it as a one size fits all, and to be able to say, here are the guardrails, but let's make it your own. And so that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to voice that over at our meetings, at our state meetings. We're trying to voice the fact that we believe in the Blueprint, but we just want to do it in a way that's conducive to our school district.
Do you find each school within the school district to have different needs?
Yes, very much so.
We have a couple of questions in the chat here.
Okay.
One was from Mary. Did the school board have any interactions this year about banning books? Were any books identified to be banned?
It didn't come up as a school board, but I've had some offline conversations with some community members. And what we did was I told them any concerns that they did have. Nothing has come to me, but I did say if there were concerns or they're hearing something, to make sure they go to their school, because in their school, our librarians do have a system in which they select their books, and they're making sure they're putting their books in the different libraries. So it hasn't risen up to my level, but I have heard of that in other districts.
There's another question. How are Talbot County schools performing with respect to Maryland state standards for reading and math?
Well, honestly and transparently, I would like to do a lot better. And which is why we've trained all of our teachers in reading, the science of reading, which really means teaching students, going back to phonics, phonemic awareness, comprehension, and fluency, because we're lagging. We are lagging in ELA math. We're about 19% proficient. And ELA is a little bit higher. So I would say we have a lot of room for growth, being honest. And so what that looks like for me is to be out in the buildings to make sure that, number one, it's a formula. It's high quality instructional materials that have been researched and vetted. It's high quality professional learning. And then it's high quality student engagement. All three of those: professional learning for the teachers, the materials that you're using, and then the practices that the students are engaged in. That, to me, is a formula for results. And so we've already trained all of our staff, kindergarten through third grade, in solid reading practices. We've already seen a couple of percentage growth from last year to this year in our ELA, and we've seen the growth in math. So it's slowly 1%, 2% here or there. So I think if we stay on the path of making sure that we have the right materials, and we are adopting a new reading and a new math curriculum. So the reading and the math curriculum that we're getting ready to choose have been vetted, have been researched, and we had teacher committees try it out to get their opinion on what they think, in the classroom. And talking to some of my counterparts in the state, they also are looking at some of those same curriculums. So to me, it's like, okay, so everybody kind of thinks that this is kind of the number one to use. So to your question, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with where we are with our results. I think we have a lot of growth to go, but I think we're on the right track. I think we have a solid team. We have solid teachers in the classroom that are using the high quality materials and high quality practices and are gauging students so that we can start the path moving forward.
What's being done with English as a second language in the schools? That
Oh,
really concerns me. I mentor a young Hispanic girl, and it concerns me.
yes, that's what keeps me up at night, honestly. Our Hispanic population is the only one that is going straight up every year, more and more, and yet we don't have the staff to meet those needs. So I'm asking everybody on this call, if you know anyone that could help in that area, we have it posted on our website. And even as much as our translation services, everything that we put out to our families, we have to have translated and make sure that our families are informed. So, we are looking into programs for teachers to take so that they could be certified in those areas. And even if we can help pay for that, pay for the teachers, for them to be able to teach and be certified as English as a second language, so that we can help. Because right now, and it's not just Talbot, it's everywhere. Everywhere I'm talking to my counterparts, and that's the number one challenge we have is finding staff to meet the needs of our Hispanic students. So thank you for doing that, though.
You mentioned earlier that you were in the process of recruiting. Will you be doing some recruiting in the Southwest United States?
I'm trying that, yes. So I want us to go further out because we're swapping each other here on the shore. We're jumping from Queen Anne to Caroline to Dorchester, and we're just jumping across lines. I want us to, and we've been talking about sending our recruiting teams further out, especially to the states who aren't paying as much as we are. The one challenge, and this is what I've been having conversations with, and maybe someone on here also can assist, is the housing. Once they get here, I meet with the parent advisory group, and I've had some parents that said they would be willing to be host families, but that's only short term. I need to make sure I have housing for anyone I bring over here or fly over here so that they don't come here and they're only here for a short while and they're not supported or they can't afford to live here and then they end up going back. So we have our ideas of where to go. It's that second piece of, okay, what do we do when they get here? And having that second layer of support. So, but I've been talking to people about that in the housing, kind of with the housing topics.
I have a question about outreach to parents, especially parents who speak Spanish and not English. I've been tutoring for 2 years a little girl who was in second grade last year and she's in third grade now. And her mother's very cooperative with, having her meet with me, but doesn't seem to be aware. She doesn't speak English, and she doesn't seem to be aware of the need to have time at home where she can do her homework or encourage reading or, have books. They do seem to take books out from the library, but I feel like there's really room for reaching out to that parent population and, educating them about how to support their children's learning.
Yes, I went to Easton Elementary, I guess back in November. Chesham RC, the Multicultural Center, goes to Easton Elementary and they have an after-school program. And I went
Yes.
there and I stood in front of the parents because they all came for this one event and talked to them about what we're doing. And then also said, what can I do to help? I left my cards there. I didn't get much feedback, but I think you're right. And I do think about how we can do that. In Gwinnett County, Georgia, I saw a school bus that they retrofitted into a classroom, basically, and went out into the community so that people can get on the bus and they could get resources. And I came back with that idea, so my wheels are spinning literally with that idea. But you're right, I do think there needs to be more for us to get out to families. One idea that I've been reading about and dabbled a little bit with it when I was in Delaware is Parent University, but it's almost a forum for families to. We have different topics of ways to help them. The only thing is I'm trying to think of how we can get out in the community to do that versus coming in or trying to find the best times when we could have people.
I love the bus idea.
Yeah.
Is that a little like the PTA?
Yes, and that's going to be a group that I talk to. I meet with the PTA leaders of the schools, and so that's where I'm going to pitch at least the bus idea, and because they do their own schools, kind of they have different activities, but collectively we're still trying to throw out some ideas.
Yeah, I think the population of parents that I'm talking about probably are either too intimidated or
Right, right.
whatever to be part of the PTA, in any way
Mhm.
that they would get the message that way, unless the parents who are in the PTA reached out to them. I think they're parents who care about their kids but are clueless about what to do. And yes, my tutoring is at Easton through Ches MRC.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I did have popsicles in the park this summer, and we went out to every school community this summer, and
Mhm.
that was a nice way for families to come out and for us to talk to them during the summertime. And we're going to do it again. And I partnered with the Talbot County Free Library, so we're going to do
Okay,
that again
great.
this summer because that was just a nice informal way to talk to find out what we can do to
Good.
help, and it was a good turnout.
Love this focus on what can we do to help parents help their own children succeed? Because we can't rely on teachers to be parents.
Right. Mhm.
And sometimes parents are, it's different now to be a parent than it was when we were kids. Our parents, there typically was somebody who was more at home or more involved. And now you've got both parents working to keep a roof over the head. We have a couple questions here on the chat that I wanted to put forward. Um, and one of them goes back to the issue of teaching positions. How many funded teaching positions are currently vacant?
Um, by ballpark, I would say 15, at least 15. And the hot topic areas are math, science, and special ed. Those are the top three we're constantly trying to fill.
So I have another question in here. Is it likely that the Maryland Blueprint for Education will become an unfunded mandate that Talbot County will need to find funds to achieve so that they can achieve those blueprint goals?
I would say it currently is an unfunded mandate in some areas. You know, while they, meaning, the Accountability Implementation Board that oversees the blueprint being done, say that they're giving counties money. We just have to change what we've done in the past to be able to utilize the money. But it's hard when you have a student who, for instance, is in the band or is in some other activity. We're not gonna cut the band program so that we can have that money to put over in something else that the blueprint says we need. So those are the conversations that we're having, that it's easy to say, well, we've given you money for this and this and this. Well, it still doesn't cover all of the other things that students need in our district. So those are the challenging things that we're grappling with right now.
Another question here that's related to the English as a second language issue. Could students taking or knowledgeable of Spanish do family tutoring as part of their public service hours?
I love the idea. I actually like that idea. So that's students that are fluent in the Spanish and maybe even have that lit certificate to do the publics. That actually is a good idea. And I don't know, Sally, I see you're on, and I don't know if you've heard of that out in the district. I haven't heard of that being done, but I'm going to write that down because I do think that's something. I have a task force right now that's meeting to bring recommendations at the end of the school year of what we could do for a lot of these questions that are coming up around our Spanish population. So, but if that isn't on the list, I'm going to make sure we throw that out there to see if that's something that's doable. I like
And that
that.
kind of goes hand in hand with the mentor program,
Correct.
the
Yep.
peer-to-peer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
But this goes even further, I think, and it goes into more
Yeah.
of the family.
Yeah, I like
That
that.
could-
Thanks for that suggestion.
Yeah, that's great.
We've been talking at Chesapeake Forum about, we had a number of people who indicated they wanted to learn a language. And so I was talking to Tally Berry about helping set up a program where we could bring in some Spanish-speaking adults along with English-speaking adults who want to learn Spanish and vice versa, who could learn together. We're still noodling that. We'll probably have to pay because he supports a family just like any other adult of that age. It's not like we as seniors donating a lot of our time, but we think that might be an interesting tool to use because it helps make sure that some of the adults who come here and don't speak English very well can learn how to do that. So if you have any ideas of how that might work, we could do it at the Y, and the Y would support with childcare, which would be super. So, because they were very hot on the idea. So if that comes up and you're thinking, give me a call and maybe we can collaborate on that.
Yeah.
And we have another question here about cell phones. What are your goals for dealing with cell phone use in classrooms?
Oh gosh, I tell you, when I first came, that was one of the first things that I did tackle, not by myself, but just with my board members. We came up with kind of a scaffolded policy, so to speak, meaning kids at this level could do this. When you got a little bit older, you could do a little bit more. When you got to high school, you could do a little bit more. That still does not solve the issue of cell phones in the classroom. And there's plenty of articles out there. I've talked with my counterparts. The biggest things that are out there right now are pouches that you could buy that come with a hefty price, and every student will put their cell phone in a pouch and it locks. And it can't unlock until, an administrator at the end of the day or whatever. I've also heard of the pocket protectors inside the classroom where a student walks in and just puts their phone in it. What I'm finding is that while we had our policy and we had posters all over the buildings, and the inconsistency that I saw when I'm walking around of a teacher, I'm a teacher and I taught my 50 minutes or whatever, and I need 10 more minutes. And I said, oh, you're finished your work class. Go ahead and, you can take your phones out for the last 10 minutes of class. So I have, Miss Smith saying that to her class because she may have, a small class and she knows them all and they're responsible. But then you have, Mr. Smith down the hall who knows this is our policy and, no phones at all. I'm not letting you take them out at the last 5 minutes because that's what, we do. And so then it's the student saying, well, I was just in English and she let me take it out the last 10 minutes. How come you're not let us do it? So the inconsistencies that I see with that from school to school, from teacher to teacher, depending on where you are. So we're still talking about solutions to that. Coming off of where we were like 5 years ago to now, still grappling with it with my counterparts here on the shore who also have those same struggles of what to do with that. I'm listening to see what the pouches, I believe Caroline might be piloting the pouches in one of their schools. So I'm going to see what the price tag is that and what's the benefit, what was the outcome and the results of that.
Sat in on your last school board meeting just to be able to educate myself a little bit before we have this meeting tonight. And I'm curious how much of an impact, or, is the school board a partner? Do you feel like they can help you and help you succeed? Is there more that can be done? Are they, their relationship with the county council, which will have to raise taxes to be able to fund some of these things? Tell us a little bit about those interactions.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, when I first got hired, and it's a 7-member board. So when I first got hired, July 1st, November, 2 or 3 came off because their term was up. So then, we had another turn. Then through the years, Susan came off because she became a commissioner over in Oxford. One of my board members just became interim superintendent of Dorchester. So while I have a 7-member board, it's kind of, I have 4 seats that are going to be up, 3 seats that are going to be up again in the fall. So you never have the stable 7, but the ones you do have, we do have a retreat twice a year where we do come together and focus on, just like we created our priorities. So we focus on what our roles are, keeping it focused on students, making sure that we have a collective voice. And while each of the 7 may have their own personal interests, we make sure those personal interests are woven into the priorities that we have as a full district. So we really talk about their roles, and they've been very supportive, so much that we've had also joint meetings with our county councils. So we have 2, maybe even 3 a year where we come together, the board members, the 5, so it's the 7 board members, the 5 council members, and we all sit down and talk about what are the hot topics. And we really take time to dive into those topics to get all of our questions out, our concerns. And this year, actually, different than last year, I invited the county council to do walkthroughs with us, to do learning walks. So our board members were already doing it. And each quarter we go out and we just go out into the schools and we just see what we can see. And so I did ask the county council members if they would like to join us, and they did. They took me up, not all of them. Miss Milky took me up on my offer, and Pete Lesher took me up on my offer. And so they both spent a full day going around to all of the schools. And what it did was it allowed them to see firsthand the things that we talk about when we're talking about our budget and why we need money. So they were able to see teachers talk about the new curriculum, and they were able to have students see what students were actually doing in the classroom. So it really gave them a up close and personal view of what's taking place in the schools so that when they're making decisions, they can speak to it. So I'll continue to do that, and I'll continue to invite them. But we're very transparent with each other, and we make sure we keep students in the forefront and our staff. Students and staff, they're really at the forefront of our decision making.
Subject came up earlier about what might be unfunded in the blueprint. Can you give us a little bit of a little more of an idea of what you think might get left out if the county can't figure out where they're going to get the money to do this?
Well, one thing is there's a lot of things. I could probably spend a whole hour on that. So one thing is a career ladder. So they're right now, and that's probably a big hot topic. And what the blueprint is saying that they want almost like different levels or layers of staff to be on certain steps of a career ladder, meaning they're in the classroom for part of the day, or they might come out and be a teacher leader another part of the day. So, but we're trying to figure out what that looks like, especially when we're going through negotiations right now, because some counties are making all teachers get on the career ladder. Some counties are giving teachers choices because maybe there's a teacher that doesn't want to come out of the classroom and do part-time teacher leader work and part-time classroom work. So that's one area. Another area right now that we've been discussing is dual enrollment. So right now we pay for high school students to take college courses. But what we're finding is that with Chesapeake College, our students were taking the courses in the library on their laptops, just like an online course. And they were still charging us full price as if they were going to Chesapeake College and standing in front of a live professor. And so that's just an example of the blueprint saying you need to offer dual enrollment. And so we have this astronomical price tag of all of these students wanting to take all of these classes with not any guardrails up. So right now we're in conversations with Chesapeake College to reestablish our MOU to talk about what will those classes look like. Are they going to be asynchronous, where students are, and if so, can we get half price? Can you only charge half of that versus them going up, having a live person? So those are just a couple of examples of in each pillar where we're finding, things that we have to do where it's almost like, the floodgates are open as far as money and for us to be able to pay without any guardrails there or no support for funding.
Even if you were able to get them to Chesapeake College, I mean, that there's a certain level of expense involved in doing that, unless you're only talking about seniors who are already have their driver's license.
Mhm.
What about learning trades? That seems to have dropped out of public schools, schools in general. What are we doing as a society to meet that need?
So we are, and we've just had actually an apprenticeship day. I think they had an apprenticeship night, but we are really trying to beef those pathways up. So much, all of our eighth graders just went down to the Civic Center and were exposed to all types of careers. All the eighth graders on the shore actually go. It's through junior achievement. Also with our pathways, we are trying to actually, to become apprenticeship, for a business to become apprenticeship, they have to go through a lot of steps. And so what we're finding, some businesses don't want to go through all of that, but we're trying to become an apprenticeship ourselves as a school district, meaning if we're an approved apprenticeship, that means we can pay our students to do various things, like someone said, maybe tutor some of our families and our students. Well, we'll be able to pay our students as interns if we become an official apprenticeship. Now, Talbot County itself did go through the process. So that Talbot County is an approved apprenticeship for us. And there's not many counties who actually have gone through that in the state. So that was a big deal for us. So there's students who work, their EMS, they work in the EMS area. And so the county has hired some of our students as apprenticeships. So we are shining the light more on our pathways and getting students interested in the different fields that we have out there. I know Dr. Gieske, retired pediatrician, has partnered with us and has taken an interest in middle school students in the summer and getting them involved in healthcare, occupations that deal with healthcare. So we're getting more exposure down at our lower levels. So by the time they get in high school, they at least have an idea. I actually just Zoomed with a teacher. She was a new teacher, and she was in her field of healthcare. I think she was teaching in the CNA program. But she was only teaching it because she was interested in when she was in middle school. She remembered going to the high school and, taking a tour and finding out about the pathways. And she took an interest, and now she's actually teaching in the field. So we're trying to expose our students in middle school of the different pathways that we have so they can take an interest, and trying to get more apprentice companies to partner with us so that students can have those opportunities to intern.
I have one other item that came up in here. Someone wrote, oh, Deborah, I've heard from a couple of kids that there's a lot of physical fighting in the school, particularly more in Easton than St. Michael's. Is fighting increasing, and how are you managing that?
Looking at the numbers, it's not a major increase. What I have found, though, is the socialization from COVID or lack thereof socialization, and the stressors that have been put on families. We do have SROs in all of our schools, so which is really good for us. And we have been talking to our staff, and they've been trained in restorative practices, and so that when an altercation does come up, we can talk about, what was the trigger with that, what happened with that, what to do next time. So I think, but we will be looking at that data from year to year. So at the end of this year, we will look at number of incidents this year compared to last year, month by month, school by school. So we look at all of that data so that we can say, okay, are we seeing something just in the school? Like you said, Easton High. Well, we know there are more students there as well. But are we seeing certain times of the day, certain areas? So we dissect that at the end of this, we'll be doing at the end of this year compared to last year for that. But we do, my director of student services, meets with all of our assistant principals who keep the data and look at the referrals. We work with our social workers, our psychologists, our counselors, just to make sure that we are providing services for our students out there. And it's a lot of wraparound services. It's not just the students, it's the students and their parents.
Another comment followed that. Does Talbot County have any special schools for students who repeatedly demonstrate disruptive behavior in the classroom, like Anne Arundel County's Learning Center?
No, we do not have a special school. We have a place that students come to here at district office that work with 2 staff members so that they're not home and missing instruction. So they can still come here, have an instructor, the counselors come out here to make sure they're getting any other needs that need to be met, and they're getting instruction as well. So it's not like a separate school. I would just say it's a separate place that they come to.
I liked your comment about it's a wraparound issue, basically.
Yes.
It's not that simple. The kid's a troublemaker, but well, why is he a troublemaker? It's we've got to figure out the what's happening. You noted vacancies in math and science. Talbot
Yes.
County has many retired engineers and scientists. How can they help?
That, and actually when I was at Chesamar-C, and there were a couple of math retired people that were there helping out. So what I need to do is find out from in my teaching and learning department, specifically in those areas, where the need is. And I'm wondering, Lynn, would I be able to tap into you for any of the people that would be interested, that are like the retired engineers and scientists?
We do an annual survey. It'll probably be
Okay.
going out in June or July. If you have an idea of some specific needs, I could put the word out and ask people to let me know in a response back. Give us some information, how we can contact them and what they might be interested in
perfect.
helping with.
And I definitely will know by then. I will definitely have concrete numbers by then.
I know that, and we talked about this last year, but I know that when we've had teachers who've been looking for mentors for a certain project for the kids in their classroom, that I've put that out in our monthly newsletter, and they've gotten tons of, not tons, but like 9 or 10 very well qualified people to help them. So I think that Chesapeake Forum is full of people that want to help.
Good. Okay.
You had some questions you wanted to pose of us.
Yes. So my number one question, we are getting ready to embark on another 4 years. So we have a strategic plan that we put an RFP out for a group to work with us in charting that course. What we want to do is nail down what do we want our students graduating with? What qualities do we want them to have? And what do they need to be prepared for not only college or career, but life? What I've seen in my short time, and not just here, but a work ethic, a lack of work ethic in some students, and a confidence of being able to articulate what they want or what they know that they can do to adults, public speaking. So all of that, I guess, packaged. That's just from my lens, but I'm throwing it out to you, just in any of your experiences. What are some things we want to create a profile of a graduate? What is this? What do we want our graduates to know and be able to do? What skills do we want them to have when they graduate from us? So anything that you can think of, I'm open to hear.
Curly, I see you smiling over there. What are you thinking?
Oh, I was thinking that's such a tall demand.
It is.
We had a grandson who entered Georgetown this fall, and at the convocation for the freshmen, the message that was conveyed from the provost or whoever to them was, "You guys are going to live a long time. You're going to have many careers. You've got to learn how to learn."
Mm,
That's your job here at college. It was inspiring, I thought, to elongate. You're going to change your major from what you think you're going to major in now. You'll change it probably once or twice during your 4 years, and so on and so forth. So, to your question, translating it back down to high school or grade school, I don't know, but excitement in learning
mm,
is something that I remember an English teacher in seventh or eighth grade who used to offer extra credit for stories that you would write.
mm,
And it didn't matter if you wrote it longhand or typed it or whatever you did. Just submitting a story was encouraging. The fact that they would tempt the students to try to do better and get extra credit towards a grade or whatever was a great device. Um, and then, of course, got feedback. But it's such a tall question you ask. It's hard enough to think about it in college, much less the rest of your life. What am I going to do with myself now that I finished part A or B or C?
yeah. But I did like hearing learn how to learn, because I do think it's the problem solving. Like we can give students the skills and the computational skills, but when they're posed with a problem or some kind of challenge, what are the first steps that they're going to think about to grapple with that? And I guess have the perseverance to grapple through it versus just, giving up or not wanting to try.
I participated in National History Day this past Saturday at Chesapeake College. It was for high school students, most of whom it was for the Upper Shore Regional History Day competition. And so we read papers. The students can submit projects, exhibits, websites, performances, or traditional sorts of papers. And so we reviewed sixth, seventh, eighth, and 12th grade papers. There were only 5 papers submitted, but it was inspiring to see how many students were there participating. And the whole objective was to encourage the participants to keep at it, so to speak, and how to improve their particular product, because these were people who had already succeeded in doing something, and they were now going to have a chance for the next 30 days to improve their product towards a state competition.
Nice.
So anything that encourages constructive feedback
Mhm.
uh, is, uh, is helpful in how to learn.
I have somebody sitting next to me that you can't see, Bob.
This is Lynn's better half.
I know.
This will be our 8th year of running a summer STEM camp for kids who are falling behind. Typically, we like to have 1st through 5th graders attend this STEM camp. Our instructors are all high school kids that we recruit to kind of pay it forward. There are people on this Zoom session that could go in and teach these courses without any real effort. But it's
Mhm.
important, I think, for the young elementary school kids to see an example of somebody who's just a little bit older than them and say, I can do that too. We call the instructors STEM leaders. And these STEM leaders have several purposes. One, to encourage these little guys, we call them munchkins, that learning is fun. We don't judge them. Some of these kids are falling behind, so we're not going to judge them. We're going to show them that science is fun. However, I have to say that our first lesson, by the way, I have to say this, I'm an old guy, I forget these things, but there's a mother on this call here tonight whose son taught Newton's third law
Oh, wow.
to 2nd through 5th graders a couple of years ago. And I learned at a STEM conference at the Office of Naval Research several years ago, they say, never underestimate the munchkins will not get big words and big ideas. And it was really interesting to see how Lewis conveyed the idea of Newton's third law. Anyway, so I digress. But the first lesson every summer is accountability.
Mm.
And it's interesting to watch these teens teach accountability lessons. So what they try to say, the lesson they try to convey is you can't blame the teacher you don't like. You can't blame society. You can't blame, all these things. You can't blame other people for falling behind. It's time now for you to take charge. And it's fascinating to see how these little 1st through 5th graders, they kind of get that idea. We try to follow up during the school year in a big brother, big sister kind of system. I wish I could say that has worked out a little bit better than we would like to, but we've tried that since the pandemic. Anyway, getting back to, I think, you asked a question, what could we do differently? I think we could teach and convey a message of accountability to the kids in our school systems because we don't want somebody in their 40s to figure out how they're going to make the rent payment or how they're going to keep their job. They got to figure out that's an important lesson besides reading, writing, and arithmetic that we don't really teach in private schools, public schools, charter schools, magnet schools. We really don't teach that lesson, I think.
Well, thanks for getting back around to that idea of answering Sharon's question of what do we think that kids should be graduating with?
Yeah, I like that. I like accountability and it's about the feedback. So I think it's two things too. I have also heard out there, it's the self-efficacy and also the metacognition, getting kids just to think about their thinking. Because I think oftentimes students are in a rush and it's compliance and check the box. I'm just done. I just want to turn it in and be done, but not really thinking about what that task was and the relevance to their learning and them progressing to the next step. But I think also for the adults in that space is to also take time to give the authentic feedback and not just dismiss, oh, thank you, put the paper in my bag and I move on, but really give authentic feedback to the student. I think you said somebody said encourage constructive feedback because I don't think students get that enough so that when they are met with something they don't like, then they get mad or they disagree because they don't understand the whole process of getting constructive feedback back.
So there's a question here, and it might sidetrack us for a second, so I don't want to get too far off the path of answering your question, Sharon. But is there a current profile of what students should know or be able to do in the existing strategic plan?
So yes, and I think it was 2020, or Strive for 2025, which was created in 2020. There is a profile. We do have a profile of a graduate, and it has a lot of attributes listed. And we teach students the standards, the Common Core standards of what they should know and be able to do by each grade. But what we want to do is talk to them about those standards. So when we go in the classroom, and I was just traveling around last week, and when you walk into a teacher's room, you have I can statements. I can multiply, 2 digits by 2 digits, or I can, da, da, da. So we just have to decide what it is that we are going to consistently convey to students that they do need to know and are able to do. So that's the area where we are right now, is talking about how do we do that and how do we show exemplars to students so that they know what they're striving for. And that's what I mean when I talk about high quality teaching practices that engage students. It's being able to have those standards, or be able to articulate and for students to understand, even at the youngest level, because even in kindergarten, their I can statements, I can write my name, I can identify, letters of the alphabet, and be able to get feedback on that or see exemplars in the areas that you want them to know. So what we'll do is look at our current plan, look at what we currently have for those attributes of a profile of a graduate as a starting point to see, is this what we want? Or, that was what, 4 or 5 years ago, or have things changed now that we want something else? And so we'll have people guide us through that.
Students telling you.
So believe it or not, I love talking to the students, and I just had my student advisory last week, and I had a high school student talk about, her suggestion was more AP courses. No, it wasn't more AP courses, but it was almost like a pre-AP, meaning she was a freshman in high school and she felt like she breezed through her freshman year. It was a piece of cake. And then fast forward 2 years, she's in AP classes. So it went from 0 to 60 very fast. And she felt like she was just thrust into AP. The rigor was there, the study habits had to be there, and she just felt like she had to figure it out on her own. So she was suggesting that the school system put in place some kind of work that kind of builds you up to that point where you're prepared to study and you're prepared for the rigor. So I thought it was a great suggestion, especially coming from, a high school student. But what they want, more Socratic methods of grappling with things. They want to hear from their teachers. They want to have discussion and professional discourse in their classroom. They don't want to be in front of the iPad all day. And so that's what I'm hearing from students when I'm out there, that they are ready for it. I think we as the adults have to let them take those risks instead of thinking that they can't handle it or they can't do it.
So we have a comment here: creativity, courage, confidence.
I love it. I love it. Well, I know, even though I know 21st century, we've said the 21st century like years ago, and it seemed far off. 21st century skills, when I read them, it is that creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, communication, all of those skills. And I believe some of those are embedded in our profile currently. But again, we'll sit down and be on the lookout too, because when we do this work, we are going to be coming out in the community and having focus groups, and gathering input from people far and wide in the county to get input on our next 4 years of what we want collectively for our students. So we'll make sure we put it out when we're soliciting people for the focus group work and the work that we're going to be doing for that. It'll start in the fall.
So getting back to your question, what do we think graduates what the skills are, what do we want them to look like or act like? I think the basics, I want them to know that when the work starts at 8 o'clock, you're expected to be there at 8 o'clock. You get the job done properly. You care about getting the job done properly. I liked Charlie's comment, that you want to continue learning regardless of what level of worker you are.
I would add cultivating curiosity,
Mm,
Mhm.
giving recognition, reward to good questions,
mm,
Mhm.
mhm.
and instead of rewarding people for asking good questions, and so I would add curiosity to your list of C's that you just gave us, Len.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would, getting back to learning to learn, I would also say once, which you really do in college, that is a big piece of this sort of meta of what you learn in college. But more basic than that is just learning how to gather information that you need. Um, and knowing how to tap sources of information and gather information and put it together in a meaningful way. I would say that's something.
Oh, that's and interesting you say that, Ronnie, because one of the comments I get from teachers is that the method of going out and finding something and copying and pasting it into the answer, but not really, they aren't really paying attention to what does that really mean. And that question gets lost in the translation, basically.
Yeah.
What else? What are some other things that good citizens? We want them to be good citizens. We want these. We want we want young people that go out into society and with the idea of earning a living and raising a family that believes in America as that raising children with values. Um, what else?
I know went down for junior achievement, and there was a simulation where students are given, a scenario where they are either married or single, they have a certain job, they have so many kids, and so they're put into this profile, and then they have to navigate through a small community down there, and then at the end, see how much money they have left, see how were they able to save, were they able to, did they go on vacation and blow their money? So it was a really good experience for the students to simulate fiscal responsibility, some and show them the cost of things. Some were mad that they had three kids and how much food they ate. But it gave them an insight as to real life that they really didn't think about. And at the end, some were really astonished that they couldn't afford, to pay their utilities because they wanted to go to Tahiti or somewhere. So instead, so but I think like you said, just being able to know how to do that and how to navigate and understanding how that fits together, and the qualities to be able to do that.
Yeah, I would add to that also being engaged in governance and understanding what governance is about on all the different levels and how one can engage.
Mhm.
Also, some young people are just waiting to be challenged a bit more. An example is not every year, but many years, we ask our teenage instructors, STEM leaders, to watch Stand and Deliver with their parents and talk about it. And then on our STEM leader training day, they talk about that movie amongst themselves. The
Mhm.
primary lesson I hope that they get from this is that we need to we need to raise the level of expectations. We need to raise the bar. Now, how we do that in a public school setting, I don't know. But I think if we raise the bar, a lot of the really good kids are going to rise to those level of expectations. And and that's what, when we run STEM camp, I kind of manage it the kind of way my dad taught me how to swim as a 3-year-old. He took me to a large public pool. He grabbed me by the wrists. He tossed me into the deep
I was
end.
going to say, did he throw you in?
And he threw me in and he walked away.
Mhm.
Now there was an instance in STEM leader training last year where they were kind of figuring out how they're going to work out all the experiments and the demonstrations, stuff like that. And there was a teacher, their science teacher, there sitting next to me as I was watching this thing. And Justin said, you have to jump in there and fix this for them. And I said, I can't. They have to figure it out themselves. I had high expectations where they were going to end up, but sometimes we need to allow them to fail just a little bit on top of those high expectations. Anyway, so I'm rambling here, but I think we need to figure out how to challenge young kids a little bit more than what we do in society and in the classroom.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I do think, and we've talked about this failure, and not trying to always avoid that, which is, one of the transforming. That's why I started the Transforming Performing Award, because I do think as the teachers, you want to do everything perfect and you want to make sure you follow everything, but sometimes you will take a risk and find out that something did work that you didn't think was going to work. And so that should be celebrated so that other people can also try to take risks as well.
So we're kind of winding down here, and I'm wondering, did you get a good answer to your question, Sharon? Do you want to ask
I did.
again?
I have a whole half a page here. So when we start the work, I'll say, folks on the Chesapeake Forum have given us a good start with some of these attributes.
I bet you if you ask us to find volunteers for a focus group, but we'd definitely find some people that would come in and talk to you.
Oh, yes.
So.
Well, I'm sure, like I said, when we get it underway, we'll be at the fire hall or some big space, getting feedback from people in the community.
All for the rest of you, and some of you are not turning your videos on, so I can't really tell, but Peggy, Mary, well, there's two Marys, but do any of the rest of you want to ask any questions? Mariel?
This is Mary Jordan. I'll just say, Sharon, we've met once with Dr. Gieske and the ITCH group, and anyway, I think you're just doing a great job. It's a big job, and I'm impressed with how quickly you've gotten your arms around it and how you're moving forward. So anyway, thank you, and thank you for this time at the end of your workday.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, thanks a lot. I have a great team that I unleash. I mean, very talented team, and so I don't micromanage. Everyone knows the goals that we have, and so we get the work done.
Thank you.
How do you pronounce your last name? I came on board late.
Pepukayi.
Thank you. Are your mother and daddy the Edsels?
Yes, my dad is Edsel and my mom is Lillian Turner.
I work with the St. Michael's Committee on Race, and your daddy was on
the panel.
Right, and I got him on the panel. They're really nice. And your mom mentioned at some point that you were the new head of the school.
What a small world.
Yeah, it's small. It's good to be back.
Nice to meet you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Pepukayi, for sharing this time with us and giving us a little bit of an idea of what's going on, and for all of you with your comments and the questions in the chat that you sent over. So wonderful.
Well, I appreciate your time and all of you that say you're helping out in any form with youth today. I appreciate that because it does take all of us to get them ready for college and career and life. And so hopefully I'll see you again and you'll be part of our strategic plan process as we chart out the next 4 years for our district.
Especially you mentors. That's quite the job.
Yes.
Thank you for what you're doing and keep your sense of humor.
Always.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bravo.
Okay, have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.